Yeah, can't do that on a phone. Yo guys, welcome back to another video. So if you've been on the channel for a little while, you'll know that I regularly make videos comparing professional grade cameras to smartphone cameras. In fact, if you discovered the channel through one of those videos, I'd be super interested to hear about it. Let me know with a comment down below which one you discovered the channel from. On those videos, I regularly get comments like this one from Daryl, really impressed by the S22 Ultra, though it doesn't totally make sense to compare it to the R6, since you are comparing HDR shots to a single raw file. The S22 Ultra, and this kind of applies for phones in general, is good because of the software. You buy an R6 if you're probably getting paid to photograph. So you're probably taking photos of weddings or events. You're probably not going to shoot a wedding on a phone. And to be honest, I agree with these comments. There's definitely a few reasons why this camera hasn't been replaced by this camera, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. First of all, I do want to briefly discuss some of the advantages that the more modern smartphones, the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the S22 Ultra that I have right here, are basically allowing us to do, because of the fact that they're allowing us to shoot really high detail raw images. There are now a lot of advantages that come with mobile photography. There are some challenges with phones, stuff like sharpening. I do find that pretty much every phone tends to over sharpen its images, and they also have a habit of oversaturating those images, and things often come out looking a bit what I call HDR-y. Everything is just quite oversaturated or a bit brighter or than it would be like sort of to the naked eye. The good news is that a lot of these issues can be fixed using these raw files, and this is something I've been doing most recently in my reviews of both the Pixel 6 and the S22 Ultra, is reviewing those raw files and actually having around and being able to play around properly in detail with the files coming out of these phones. It's really good as a photographer to be getting access to these raw files to be able to make those changes. The fact that the cameras on phones nowadays are taking multiple images and stacking those into one raw file is just an absolutely massive advantage, and it's a huge win for smartphones. It's something which takes a lot of time and also skill on a more professional camera. And this brings us back to the fact that phones in general are relying a lot on incredible software instead of incredible hardware to produce great images. So that then nicely brings us on to the point of the video. What actual advantages does a camera like this one hold over a camera like this one hold if we have those side by side? First one is obviously a no-brainer here. You see the ginormous lens that I have on the camera here. This is a 7200 Canon L series lens. This is a zoom lens. I can obviously get super far away, and you just cannot do that on a phone. The way they're doing this, or the way that phones are doing this, is putting multiple lenses on the back, but you still have a fixed limited amount of range, and that does mean you're restricted in the shots that you can get. I can shoot on a 7200, zoom right in from 70 to 200 instantly, then if I want, I could change to a 20mm, or I could change to a 50mm 1.8 and get a really nice shallow depth of field. There is basically no way of doing this on a smartphone at the moment, and it is still one of the most significant reasons to buy a larger camera, is the ability to change those focal lengths. My favorite thing is actually shooting on telephoto. I think that it's super interesting to be able to look through that viewfinder and shoot something in a totally different way than you would ever see it in real life. Having the ability on a camera to change the lenses means that you can immediately change the look and feel of the camera in 10 seconds, or the time that it takes to change a lens. So I've got the S22 Ultra here, and it's not a new functionality that Samsung have allowed us to do, because there are apps that give you full manual control, but this phone does come with manual control. You can download an app called Expert Pro Raw and pretty much change every camera setting. The thing is, this is still a relatively fiddly thing to do. It's not super easy, and it's certainly not that quick. On a camera like the Canon EOS R6, a more professional camera, pretty much everything is accessible via these dials, via these settings, and once you get very good with a camera, or very used to a camera system, you have full manual control over pretty much everything to do with that camera, pretty much at a touch of a button. And again, you can change the look and feel of your shot purely by playing around with those camera settings. Ask any working professional photographer, they will have full, very fast working knowledge of their camera and able to change the settings like super quickly, and that can't really be done on a phone. Anyone who's been on the channel knows that I don't like portrait mode really, but portrait mode is a useful tool on phones, I do understand that, but as someone with access to larger cameras, portrait mode just kind of doesn't do it for me, and there's a reason that portraits are shot using larger cameras. Portrait mode, the way that sort of you get that nice background blur, doing that in camera from a camera with a larger sensor just is always going to look better because it's done with optics instead of software. You can always get a beautiful shallow depth of field using a camera if you know what you're doing with your camera systems and your lenses, and phones just cannot do that. Another reason that professionals use cameras over phones is the ability to shoot action and shoot fast-paced things and capture them pretty smoothly and pretty flawlessly. That is a combination between being able to shoot at very high shutter speeds, which basically is just enabled to actually freeze that motion happening, and then the other thing is being able to shoot very high frames per second. If I turn this camera on here, there's no card in here at the moment, then I change my modes over to high speed continuous, listen to this. That is a very, very fast shutter. Phones are not able to do that. You can't replicate that on a phone, and pretty much every phone will have some degree of shutter lag. So if you're shooting anything like weddings or sports, absolutely essential to have an actual camera. In my recent video of the Samsung S22 Ultra, I showed the low light capabilities of that phone. It absolutely is amazing. Same with the Pixel 6. Both of those phones have amazing low light potential, and the iPhone line is no different, but it is achieving that with software. And it does mean that there are challenges. When you're shooting a static object, these cameras or these phones are doing amazing computational things to create a stacked image, but also to allow tons of light into the sensor. On a proper camera, you can't do that unless you're shooting with a tripod, but it does also mean if you have things like motion or anything like that, those low light computational algorithms are going to really struggle. Whereas a more professional camera does just give you a lot more latitude because it's doing it using actual hardware. The sensor is much larger on a camera, so it just allows in more light. Obviously, with a phone, you can't take the battery out and replace it. If I'm shooting a wedding, you're going to rinse through a phone battery in probably 3 to 4 hours, depending on the phone that you have. Shooting images and videos is very, very intensive on a phone battery. With this camera, I would bring 3, 4, 5 batteries with me and just know I'm going to be completely covered all day. I can literally just swap out a battery. That is just super important. And then finally, my next big reason is just tactileness. Like having this in your hand is a super nice experience. It's actually the reason why I use little cameras like my Fuji, why I still enjoy shooting on cameras like this, because they are just extremely tactile. Like there's a lot going on these things, and obviously just shooting with a phone is not quite as fun. However, with that being said, it's super fun to see how far smartphone photography is going and how impressive these cameras are getting. So these comparisons are not going anywhere, and I'll see you guys in the next one.